Hi, welcome to Smart Programming. I'm Steven. I'm full stack .NET software engineer with an emphasis on ASP.NET MVC, as well as web services like Web API. I'm also a technical architect and software trainer. In this section, we're going to discuss about QueryMultiple in Dapper. Before continuing with the section, I highly recommend you to watch Section 1 and 2 in this video series. Let's go over what we learned in the last section. In the last section, we have learned about the most commonly used method to get data from the database in Dapper, which are query, query first, and query first or default. Query often used whenever SQL statement we try to execute in the underlying database return more than a single record, then we use query method. Whereas if the query returns a single value, that means a scalar value or a single record, and then we use query first or default. And the difference between query first and query first or default, that is, query first or default returns the default value if the sequence contains no elements. The other more involved, which is QueryMultiple. This method is an extension method. It can be called from any instance of IDbConnection type, and it can execute multiple queries within the same command and map results. Let's say if we write a query to return multiple rows of data in a table along with the total number, and we can simply write two separate queries, one to return multiple rows of data in the table and the other one to return total number of rows from the previous query. In that case, it's not likely to perform well due to the number of network route trips. If you're querying over a network, then there is overhead in using number of queries instead of a single query. On the other hand, depends on your DBMS, your database management system. Another thing you should think about is the impacts of one query on the other queries hitting the same database. If your DBMS allow reader to block writer, then this query could prevent update to the table. If it takes a long time to run, that could be bad. This is sometimes called select n+1 problem. The key thing here is SQL works much better when you operate on whole sets of data at once. And Dapper comes to our rescue with QueryMultiple, which help you to be able to execute multiple queries within a single query. Okay, let's take a look at an example of using QueryMultiple. Within SQL Server Northwide database, I got a product table and I want to display all of the data in a grid view control within a particular window forms application along with the total number of rows in a single query. Okay, let's flip to Visual Studio. Here I have the simple UI with the tick box control to display the total number of rows and the grid view control to display the data. And within app config, I got a connection string porting to the SQL Server database, and here is the name of connection string. So we need to read the connection string. To do that, we use Configuration Manager class presenting system.configuration namespace. Here you go. So make sure that you remember to import before actually using Configuration Manager class. To create an instance of connection object, I'm using block to ensure that connection is properly closed in a timely fashion. As soon as connection object goes out of scope, it gets closed automatically, so we don't need to explicitly call close method if we're using block. Let's copy the SQL command that I want to execute and paste them right here. This kind of command is going to return multiple resources. So if I want to execute the query like this, then I'm going to use QueryMultiple. If we use QueryMultiple, so what we're getting back? We're getting back an instance of reader class to help us read multiple resources from the query. Along the same line, to access and retrieve data from each of the resources, then we call read methods. It's a generic method that takes the type of the object that's going to hold the data of respective resource set. Let's display the data on Windows Forms application. And get it up and running. That's what we expect. And the question comes to our mind is, how can Dapper determine which resource set is the right one to extract from and return to? What is the magic behind the scene? It's a little bit tricky here because under the cover, Dapper used split down value to decide when the columns for one entity and the next start, regardless of whether class name and table name are the same or not. And if you rename the product class to something else, then the query can still work, because Dapper doesn't rely upon the table name in this case. Let's rename the product class to something else like this and run again. And the file. Okay, run again. As what we expect, it should still work the same as before. Okay, it's worked. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and have a great day. See you in my upcoming video series. Bye bye.